This is an exercise that will show you how to use images in SolidWorks, in particular how to use a 2D hand-rendered image and to create a 3D SolidWorks model based on that image. For this we need to have a hand-rendered image. So what I'd like you to do is to just sketch something up very similar to what I'm doing here. This took me about 10 minutes to do, obviously it's sped up. So I'd suggest probably 10 to 15 minutes worth of sketching, and from there you should have an image which is suitable for use. My only suggestion is that don't make it too complex. Make it so that it's got a handle and a blade and there's an opening in the handle, similar to this one. Once that's complete, you should have an image which is ideally suitable for this kind of visualization. This is a very realistic scenario that industrial designers are faced with. When you're asked to create a design and give a very quick visual representation of that design, but instead of just being restricted to a 2D image, a fixed image on the page, what we're going to do is we're going to create a three-dimensional image that's you're able to manipulate in ways that the 2D image it just can't be. Once you've finished your sketch and you're happy with it, you'll next need to scan it and into a JPEG format, and then we can use it in SolidWorks. Now we need to go to SolidWorks and we need to paste that image onto a new sketch. So we open up a sketch first, and then it's a little bit complex. We go to Tools and we go down to where it says Sketch Tools, about halfway down, and then right down the bottom we've got Sketch Picture. All we have to do is browse for the sketch picture that we want, and what that will do is it will drop the image on with the bottom left hand side of the image onto the origin, and that may or may not be where we want it to be. If you need to move it around, you can just drag and drop it. I'm going to drag this image down to about 400 millimeters across, so that's about the size that we want, and then you just got to drag and drop it. You can actually rotate your image as well, so there's a few different things that you can do. What often makes sense is to put the origin over a point that makes sense, like for example this little screw here. Transparency, we can change the transparency. A few different options. If we go to full image, we can change the transparency to about 50%. Now the reason why I've done that is because when we're generating the geometry, we can see through the image to where the geometry is. Now I'm just going to leave that sketch and I'm going to create another sketch on the front plane. We could have created sketch geometry on that sketch we've just created, but it's a little bit easier to do it on a new sketch, and the reason for that is because later on we're going to want to hide the image that the sketch that the image is on. So next step will be to create a spline, and for this we very simply just use the spline tool and just go around and sketch around the image. Don't worry too much if your sketch doesn't follow the image, the outline exactly at this point in time, because that can easily be adjusted. Also, resist the temptation of putting too many sketch points in place, because or spline points, because that will just make life a little bit more difficult for you later on. So as you can see, this doesn't quite follow the shape that I wanted, but that doesn't matter. All we have to do is click on one of these spline points, and then we have these little control points that we can drag, and we can then manipulate those points to get the spline to be the shape that we want it to be. Okay, it will take a little bit of playing around with it to get it right. So once you're happy with it, then, and I think that's probably about right for now. The reason why I say it doesn't really matter is because it's very easy to go back and change this and adjust it later if things aren't working the way you want. So the next step is to make a spline to define the inside of your handle, and do that in exactly the same way as you did for the outside of the handle. When you finish the spline, just double click on the end, and that will finish the spline, or press escape. So again, I'm just going to do a slight adjustment to get this the right shape, and that will probably do. Okay, so from there we can create a boss extrude. I'm going to use the mid-plane boss extrude so that it'll
extrude this on both sides of the sketch, and I'm going to make that about 20 millimeters thick. Hit OK, and there we have a rough shape of the handle. Just to smooth this off, I'm going to put some fillets on both sides. So I'm just going to select that face, and that will put a fillet around all the way around the face, and this face too. Hit OK, and giving my fingers crossed that 10 millimeters is going to work. We probably need to drop that down to a little bit less, like about 8. And there we have it. So that's the rough outline of the handle. The next thing we're going to do is the blade. And again, we're going to do that in a similar way. I'm going to use a 3-point curve though instead, because the top of the blade's curved. And then another one here. And I'm not going to worry about the teeth, because what we're after here is something that's very quick, and we don't really need that level of detail for this particular exercise. So again, I'm going to make a mid-plane extrusion. I'm going to extrude that 2 millimeters, and that's our blade. So there we have the shape, a very rough outline shape. I haven't worried about putting the screw bosses in place. That's all that's there. Now, what we can do is we can hide the original sketch, because we don't need that anymore. So I'm just going to right click on it. We could delete it because nothing is actually tied to it, but we might need it later on, so I'm just going to hide it. So that's our object. The next thing is to go to photo view. We're going to now paste an image over the top of this part. So what we do is we go to photo view 360, select edit decal, and the dialog box on the left hand side will prompt you for an image file, and we need to follow the same process. Go to where the file is stored. You've already searched for that. Select that file, and what you need to do next is go to the mapping button, and we have the option here of now pasting that image onto either a face or a surface or a body or a feature. Now in this case, we want it to be pasted onto the body. And the best way of selecting the whole body is just to go up to the feature manager tree here and just select that upper part 1. And what it will do is it will paste it roughly onto the image. You can rotate that if it's around the wrong way. So you've got a rotation button here. You can size it using numbers, or you can just drag it to the right size and shape. So that's all I'm going to do, because as I said, that's close enough for this exercise. I need to rotate that slightly. Now annoyingly it won't go negative, so you have to rotate it all the way around 360. So just play around with that until you get it to the right size and shape. Pull it and prod it and shift it, and hit OK, and there you have now a 3-dimensional view of your blade. This is probably the ideal time to just adjust your spline curves to make sure that everything fits properly. Once you're happy with that, one other thing you might want to do is to change the setting, the display style, from where it says shaded with edges to just simply shaded. That gets rid of those edges and makes your part look a little bit more realistic. The final thing we're going to do is to use an image in the third way, which is to use it as a background image. And there's a couple of ways of doing this. The best way is using Photo View 360 and go to where it says Edit Scene. On the left-hand side, we have a background. We have an option of image, gradient, color, and so on. In this case, we want an image. Just browse for the image that you want. Use the branch. That you'll find that online, or you can use your own image. In fact, I'd probably suggest that's the better thing to do. And then this image then becomes part of the background. And what you then need to do is just move your saw into the right position so that you've got something that you feel is realistic and it shows your product the way you want it to be, and then that's okay. The final thing you can do is you can then go to create a rendered image of this. So if you go to Final Render and click on that, what it will do is it will create a rendered image of your model with the background and with the decal and everything in place. You can then save that and print it out. And that's it. There's your final product.